In this episode I'll be talking to Nur Tucker, the most promising British underwater photographer of the year. Over at BREW we'll chat about all things underwater photography, from settings, equipment, competitions and techniques. Do you fancy a brew?
Sorry, I didn't see your message earlier on. I think
okay.
You sent a message on Instagram or something. I wasn't checking that. I knew that it was 7 o'clock. I was waiting for it. I could have done it earlier. I was loitering around, to be honest. I was playing some photos for UPY. The competition is open now. Yeah.
Do you tend to go for quite a lot of competitions?
A few that are my favorites. I tend to join the UPY, Underwater Photographer of the Year, and then Ocean Geographic. I do a lot of on and off monthly competitions of BSUP, British Society of Underwater Photographers.
So, Nur Tucker, welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast. Have you got a brew, number one?
Oh, actually, you know what? I don't. I just have a bottle of water. The thing is, I already had mine. That's why if I have too many teas, I won't be able to sleep. So
I'm on decaf now, and it doesn't taste any different. But man, do I sleep at night! Oh my word! I really get, I go to bed, fall asleep, don't wake up till the morning, which is good at 4 years old.
You're very lucky. There is this puka tea. Do you know that one? Puka tea. It's excellent. It really makes you sleep really well.
Right. Well, I need to, if and when I have another episode of not being able to sleep very well, which is why I went onto the decaf, I'll have to look it up because I do drink a lot of tea, hence my podcast being called Are You a Scuba Diver? Fancy a Brew? Makes sense.
That's great.
If you give us a little bit of an intro to who you are, we'll sort of see where it goes.
First of all, thanks so much for having me on your podcast. It's very exciting for me. Obviously, you know my name, Nur Tucker. I'm originally from Turkey, but I've been living in this country for about 30 years now, so it's quite a long time. But in that time, I actually tried to get rid of this accent, but I couldn't. Still, my Turkish accent is sticking with me. I originally worked in the city for a very long time, 24 years. I was a stockbroker in the city, long days, trading floors and traveling, and I raised 2 kids during that time.
Wow.
6 years ago, I decided to retire, finally. And I could, after that, spend more time with something that I was passionate about, and that was diving. I was always a diver, and I started taking photos. I think I took it seriously. When I do something, I want to do it properly. I did a number of workshops with Martin Edge and then Alex Mustard, and I started entering competitions. And I started getting this success, and I was very happy with it, so I pursued it.
How do you find training with people that are so well established, such household names? Do you feel intimidated by that at all?
The funny thing is, a number of people tell me that, look, going to Alex Mustard's workshops is such an intimidating thing to do. I think I was very naive. I didn't even know who Alex Mustard was. I found myself on his workshop, and he was very nice, and I really listened to him very carefully. The first time I went on a workshop with him, that was Raja Ampad. It was a liveaboard, and I had a very primitive camera, and he is a very, very nice man. But even like at the image reviews, he was making fun of my camera, saying, look, this is like from the previous century. Still, I did take notes and I listened very carefully. I had great time on that trip. And right away with the first trip, I got hooked onto Alex Mustard's workshops, and I really learned a lot from him. And previous to that, I did a few trips with Martin Edge as well. I think from the 2 of them, I learned a lot. But my photography only went up or exponential after I left work, because I could spend more time with my photos. Before I left work, I always did go here and there once in a while to some, diving trips. I did take photos, but then it takes you a year or 2 to go somewhere, and then you learn everything from scratch. Exposures, how does the camera work, how does the housing work. You learn a lot in that week, but as soon as you come back to the trading floor, 2 kids, you throw the camera to one side and you forget everything you learned to start from scratch again in about 2 years. You don't learn like that. That when I left work, I could do 5 trips a year. then it becomes exponential and you learn a lot. And before you forget them, you build on that on the next trip, build on that on the next trip. When you do a mistake, you have the chance to correct it. And then you also have more time to play with your photos and look around and select. I thought entering competitions is great, or great way to learn. I didn't enter the competitions to learn. I entered them. So I didn't enter them to win. I entered to learn, because you learn to become more self-critical, and then you learn from your mistakes and you see who is winning and why, etc. So yeah, that was very, very helpful.
I just want to touch on a word that you used earlier on one of on your first trip. You called your camera setup quite primitive.
It was.
Are you still using the Subal? It's quite retro in its styling.
Subal, I love Subal, and I can even be an ambassador for Subal. It's amazing. They do great housings. First of all, it's like military. Nothing happens to the housing. You can drop it. And it actually fell off from the first floor once when I arrived. I almost had a heart attack. I was in Philippines, and they tried to help you to the hotel room. Those porters, and the guy, everything. I always hand carry my photography equipment and my diving stuff. Not diving, but photography and housing stuff. I always hand carry them. I don't put them into the luggage. And the porter was trying to help, and then he helped me by carrying those things. And then he dropped it all the way from the first floor to the ground floor. I almost had a heart attack. Nothing happened. So it's very, very sturdy, those housings. It's great quality. Nothing goes wrong. This is my second Subal housing, because I had a Nikon D200 and then the relevant housing before. And now on to Nikon D500 and the relevant Subal housing. I'm very happy with it. Yeah.
See, I think the problem with sort of modern day society and shopping, everything's online, so you can either take somebody's point of view and reference from that, or look online and read somebody else's who you don't know, read their reference on certain things. Whereas back in the day, you used to be able to go to the shop and have a look at different things that you might want and compare in your own hands. So it's quite hard to do that now, isn't it? So I wouldn't know whether I needed to get a Nauticam housing or a Subal housing or any other.
It's quite difficult. It's quite a specialty, and I am far from being able to give any advice on that, on the technical matters. It's quite a sensitive thing, and once you get used to one system and you get stuck with it, like, is it Nikon or Canon? I can't say one is better than the other one. One day, some reason, you invest in something and all the lenses and the fittings, accessories, it comes with it. So you get stuck in a way. So Subal I like, but there are so many reviews out there, and obviously there are different price categories. There is pros and cons. I like my Subal. Alex Mustard has a Subal as well. But there's so many nice housings there, and there are also, it depends on what format camera you're using. I have a crop sensor, which basically means the camera and then the housing is smaller. If you have a full format camera, then the housing will become a lot bigger and heavier. And I'm quite a small, petite person myself. I just wanted to go for this setup. There are so many different setups there, like mirrorless, completely compact and small, tiny, but not price-wise. As I said, I'm not in a good position to make any technical recommendation, but there are C-cams, there are Ikelite, there's the Sony, lots of different brands.
Yeah, it's difficult. I've got the Olympus housing, and I quite like it. It fits my camera really well.
Must be very nice, yes.
But it's plastic. It's if I was to drop that off a first,
don't drop it.
It's not going to last very long. So I'm in one of those do I don't I, and I'm doing it over for sort of fashion over function. And I've always tried to teach my children, you either need it or you want it. And it's when you need it is when you should buy, rather than when you just want it for the sake of.
Yes.
So I'm trying to say
And I am not a believer in like if you have the best gear and the most expensive gear, you take the best photos. I really don't believe in that. I wouldn't even upgrade my gear. I would always think, look, I don't deserve that yet, and there must be a justification. It's the person behind the camera. It's not really. People take the most wonderful shots with a compact and cheap camera sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the technique, lighting, and it's the person, the experience.
Well, speaking of person and lighting and technique, so that when we met through Justin Bieber, so you were training with Adam, and since then I got introduced to the fact of who he actually was. I just thought he was one of the instructors at Cape May. I didn't realise he was like runs Wet Pixel and he's really good and he's local. So I went for some training with him and it made such a difference.
I did too. Did you? He's amazing. Yeah, he's amazing. He's a course director, which is the highest level that you can have as an instructor. As far as Paddy is concerned, he's got a ton of experience. I know Adam from Wet Pixel because I went to Lembe with him maybe 3 times. We were going to go again in October this year, but it was cancelled because of coronavirus. We're going to go again next year. So he's very experienced as a diver, experienced as an instructor. He's a photographer himself. Yeah, he's great. So I did a few courses with him. Prior to that, I never dived in the UK. So I wasn't a dry suit diver. I was a chicken. So I said, that's it, coronavirus, at least during this time, what can I do? Let's try this dry suit diving. I was really scared of dry suit diving.
How did you find it?
Actually, with Adam, I'm like, wow, I like this. I was, for some reason, so mortified. It's not that bad at all, actually. I was quite natural with it, so it wasn't a problem. So I did that. Then I said, okay, why don't I do a rescue diver with you as well? So I did a rescue diver course with him, and I became a master scuba diver now. So that was good. At least I used the time that I couldn't dive, etc. So what for whatever it's worth, it's just for fun.
Absolutely. See, the problem I have with UK diving, I love my dry suit. You know, I invested quite heavily in it. It's all tailor fitted. It's absolutely perfect, but it's not warm. And as soon as you get a camera in your hands, what do you want to be? You want to be really still, don't you?
Yes.
So the more still you become, the more heat you're not generating, and all of a sudden I'm freezing cold on the back of my camera, shaking.
Okay. So what do you have? What suit do you have? Not that I'm knowledgeable. I tried one and I got stuck with it. Well, which one do you have?
So I bought. There's a guy down in Dorset, and his company's called Predator. So he, straight out of school, he started making his own wetsuits. I think he was either kiteboarding or windsurfing, one or the other. And he developed that. So he must be, I think he's probably pushing 60 now. So he's been doing it a long, long time. And he developed a couple of tri-laminate dry suits. So they're not the neoprene that...
tri-laminate, yeah.
And I've got the dry cuffs on it. I've got the little tinkle valve.
Good.
It's really well suited to the kind of diving I want to do.
They are so expensive.
They are, aren't they? But it works for the kind of diving I do when I don't have my camera. So I've got myself a heated vest now. I've got a neoprene dry suit, thanks to all the diving.
You've tried everything.
Well, you've got to be warm and you've got to enjoy it, haven't you? And if it's not fun, you kind of think...
What kind of temperature are we talking about? What temperature?
Anyone who listens to this will laugh. It's still about 10 degrees and I'm still shivering.
10 is cold. 10 is cold, yeah. I did worse, was 15 degrees. It was cold. Really? I don't know what happens if I was taking photos, because sometimes you stay still, especially macro photography. Yeah. You stay in this position like this for an hour sometimes, waiting for the guy to blink or look an eye, and just you're waiting for the eye contact. Sometimes you're like this, motionless in front of one little seahorse or a nudibranch,
Or worse still, the Wednesday or Thursday that we met up at Cape and Ray, and I was with Justin, his dry suit flooded, but he doesn't know where from. So when we got out of the water, he was almost waist deep in pond, which is good fun. So,
how do you know Justin then?
So I joined NUPG, the Northern Underwater Photography Group, which is based in Manchester. I got to know a few people there and did some training with Nick and Caroline Robertson-Brown. And Justin was just the guy I was sat next to.
And he's lovely, isn't he? Yes.
And it turned out we'd both been in the military, so we had a little bit of, common ground. We got on quite well, and only probably a month before me and you met, he sent me a message saying, if you're ever free during the week, let me know and we'll go diving together. And I thought, why not? You know, we're getting towards the end of the year. I tend to be a little quieter this end of the year at work, so I can sort of skive a little bit. So yeah, it was probably our first or second dive together. That it was quite good.
Oh, well, lovely, lovely. Hopefully next year I'll join you as well, guys.
Well, hopefully it'll be down south rather than up here, because it's
maybe. Yeah, let me know.
So much better.
Let me know. Actually, we may go to Swanage Pier or something like that. Maybe we do that once the weather is a bit nicer, and like maybe April time, something like this. That would be good to dive together. I mean, Justin is a lovely guy. Yeah. Some people can be quite aggressive when they're diving for doing photography. They just want the subject for themselves, and they become a bit selfish. It can happen, but he's very nice. Yeah, he's lovely.
Happy days. Well, in doing my sort of research on you, because obviously I didn't know much about you, and Justin said, "Oh, here's a new friend of mine. Come and meet her." I've since found out you've been on like the BBC One show. You've been awarded the most promising British underwater photographer. You know, these are pretty serious sort of stuff that you're into now. So you've been doing this seriously for 6 years. You know, you're doing all right, aren't you?
Oh, thank you. You did some research, all right.
You have to do a little bit.
That's funny.
Is that largely, do you think, because you're getting noticed because you're entering the competitions? Is that probably where someone who was starting off would be better to progress as well as training, but to help them sort of be more self-critical, which you said before, wasn't it?
I think so, actually. I mean, first of all, as I said, I had more time. I could dive more, like a few times a year. Maybe I was a bit self-confident. I don't know. I mean, the first 2 times I tried with Underwater Photographer of the Year, and this is the world's most prestigious underwater photography competition. I mean, the quality there, Alex Masters says if there are 5,000 entries, 4,900 are very, very good. So it is very, very difficult to be selected in any category. The first 2 times I was in the first 100, and I did go into the finals, but I was a finalist, but I didn't really make it into it. Yeah. But the first 2 years still, I was the runner-up in Ocean Geographic in the color prints category. And last year, finally, my luck changed, and when the results came, initially I didn't understand. It basically said I put 20 photos in, and I thought I had stronger images. And the image I thought was my weakest photo won, and it says most promising British photographer of the year. And when I received the email, I got really confused. I'm like, what? They made a mistake. I didn't apply for this category. I'm like, what happened? There is a mistake. I was telling my friend, I didn't apply to this category. And then they said, it's not a category, it's a very big award. It's out of all the British entries. If you haven't won a competition before, you are called the most promising British photographer, because they liked, out of all the British entries, this photo best. I'm like, what? I don't know. Apparently it was a big thing. And then all of a sudden, my name was on The Guardian, The Telegraph, The Independent, Times, The New Yorker, BBC. The same day, it went around the world, and my photo is there. It says Nur Tucker, Wimbledon. I got so many congratulations. And then we went on to the BBC live show with Miriam Margolyes, who was making fun of my accent, saying, wait a minute, you don't sound very British to me.
You've been here longer than you haven't.
And it's exactly, wait a minute, what kind of a British photographer are you? You don't sound very British.
Wow.
And she was really making fun of me. And it was fun. It was fun. And I was very proud. The same year, again, I got another award from Ocean Geographic. And then month in, month out, I got a lot of firsts, actually, in the British Society of Underwater Photographers. I got the first position in some monthly competitions, and I won the cover for the cover competition for Royal Photographic Society. They have a Creative Eye magazine, and then a gallery opened a competition. Again, one of my photos won that. And I've been on a lucky streak, I think. I was lucky last year.
Well, speaking of magazines, you were on the cover as I was in the magazine. It was my first proper magazine spread, certainly for underwater photography. in B suits in Focus magazine. So you had the porcelain crab, that was it. So you
Oh,
were on the
yes,
cover,
yes.
and I was in the middle of the magazine. I was made up with that, and I didn't know it was you. So it's a small world, isn't it? It's crazy.
Really? I have a copy of that magazine? Did it come printed?
It's digitally. I've got
Digital.
yeah.
Digital, that's why. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in there. I gotta go and look at it again now. Which photo was yours?
I think it was. So I had an 8-page spread. Check me out. I'd never even. I'd never had anything published before, not properly anyway.
Okay.
And it was all about a dive that we'd done. I'd literally picked up a camera about this time last year. It'd have been September last year. First time I ever, other than a GoPro, so a proper camera. And then I'd done some training, and we went out to Lanzarote. So it was all about my journey from picking up the camera to going into Lanzarote and taking photographs of angel sharks. And I got,
fantastic.
Honestly,
8 pages
within a foot of this angel shark, just snapping away. And then it followed us around. I took some, in my view, great images. I got in that magazine. It must be.
They wouldn't put you in otherwise. It's a serious magazine.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that
you know what? I forgot that I was on the cover of that magazine. I forgot that now. I completely forgot.
It's because you've been on so many. Stop showing off. So outside the water, you seem to be well into your equine stuff. So there's loads of beautiful pictures of horses. Is that more important to you than underwater?
It's a difficult one. Have you seen my website then?
Yes.
Did you have a look at the photos there? Yeah. And what happened was, I love underwater photography, and my husband absolutely hates diving. The guy absolutely hates it, and he tried to come, and he tried his best to come to several trips with me, but he absolutely hates it with vengeance. So I said, I gotta do something other than just underwater. Just, I can do it on the weekend, or I can go to France a couple of days. And somebody suggested, why don't you go to south of France and do some horse photography? I said, okay, fine. So I went to the Camargue. So south of France, I took my camera, having no clue about how to take horse photos, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that really very much, and I did it again. And then I saw this Alex Mustard equivalent of the equine world, Tony Stromberg, photos on the internet. I started stalking the guy. I was sending him messages. I'm happy to carry your, camera bags, just to learn from you. He's got so many books. He's an amazing photographer. And then I started joining his workshops, similar to like Alex Mustard. They're equine photography workshops. Right. So I started doing Portugal and then Spain. I did France. I did Iceland. Well, I went to Cornwall. So I go and do one breed at a time. So when we went to Portugal, it was all about beautiful Lusitanos. When we went to Spain, it was mostly PREs, Pura Raza Española, which is very pure Spanish breed. And then Icelandic ponies. They don't like them to be called ponies, but they're like ponies actually. They're tiny. So Icelandic, and in Camargue you have the beautiful wild horses. In Cornwall, I did a lot of Arab horses and some Irish heavy horses and things like that. And then I went to Wellington last year to the States to do some warm-blooded horses. So I did like that as well. It's completely no connection between the two, horses and seahorses. No connection at all. That's why my website is called Equus and Aqua, because there are horses and there is something to do with water. I like them both, but my water is definitely more important than anything else. Anything to do with water and sub-aqua.
With that though, have you seen the same sort of success or uptake with your images out the water as you have in?
My equine horses are very commercial. The funny thing with that is a lot of people know me as the equine photographer. Really? And it brings in money for me because so many of my friends, you got to do an exhibition, you got to do an exhibition. I said, okay, fine. And since I'm not working, I put together an exhibition and it sold so well. My photos sold really well. And then somebody approached me and they said, can you do an exhibition? I said, okay. I did another exhibition that was in Knightsbridge, and it sold like £5,000 a piece. It goes really well, and some famous people bought, like Swarovski's bought a couple of photos from me, some Schneider's bought a couple of photos. There is always demand from Switzerland. There are people in Turkey, they bought some. So it sells actually, and there's always the word of mouth. There's always a demand, like, oh, I'm doing this, waiting room. I need some dynamism here. So the horse photos sell very well.
That's crazy, £5,000.
I don't do competitions on horses. No. But I develop my own style there as well. A lot of people, since I don't do competitions with the horses, I can't judge myself. But people really like my style. I'm sure you looked at those, dark, a little bit moody. Horses are obviously different than anything else because they go very fast. My style was developed in Portugal. I had an influence of Tony Stromberg, definitely. But B, what happened when we went to Portugal in May, the first time I went, and I was longing for some sunshine coming from England. It rained the entire week. I was like, oh, this is not happening. My trip is ruined. How can that be so unlucky, whatever? So obviously when it happens like that, it's plan B. So you go to it's called Hara. It's a horse breeding place. These are beautiful, beautiful Lusitano horses, extremely well looked after. So they know there is a photo shooting that day. All the horses are shampooed, washed, the hair is blow dried, whatever you think of. They have beautiful ornamental capes. So they bring them one by one, and we had to do it indoors. So these are very historic pens, like from year 1600, 1700, very old pens, beautiful inside, but it's quite dark. There are tiny, tiny windows like this, maybe a little bit dirty. So you are striving for light inside. Almost you can't turn the lights on. Artificial light will be awful. So you can see like one light is coming from one corner of the room and the horse is going like mad. So when you go like this, follow the horse, the ISO, the shutter speed, everything is changing the whole time. It's crazy. So you have to basically choose your point, saying, okay, when the horse is running from that corner, I'm going to choose my moment, maybe. So you do that, and obviously quite difficult because sometimes so dark. The horse is moving so fast, so you need a shutter speed more than 750th, maybe, but you can't. You up the ISO, and you can't go lower than 3.5 in terms of the f-stop. Very difficult. So what happens? You create these dreamlike photos, very dark, but there is the dynamism. I always like the turning point when the horse is changing direction from here, right to left, left to right, or going up in. There's always dynamism in the photos. And sometimes I use different printing techniques. Like I print on textiles or I print on jute. It becomes like oil painting. So that has become my style. A lot of people think, oh, you also do painting. Look, there are photos. And it's not Photoshop. It's just a photo, but it creates an image that's actually an oil painting. It's not.
Well, I'll touch on that quickly because you mentioned Photoshop. What programs do you use to do any editing that you might need to do? Like, for instance, I use Lightroom and Photoshop.
Yes, both. I use very badly. I'm not very good. Still, it's good and bad. I try to take the photos properly in the first place, but of course, we all do little cropping here, little. I like playing with the curves. Actually, that is my latest thing. I really love playing with the curves. It just brings some oomph into the photo. So I used Lightroom originally. To increase white balance and clarity works better on Lightroom. So when I open the photo, I open it in Lightroom. I play with the clarity a little bit, maybe a little bit of sharpening. White balance, definitely, it works better. White balance on Photoshop, I find it more difficult. So I do that, and then I bring that photo into the Photoshop from Lightroom.
I don't know anybody who uses anything different. I'd like to ask photographers what they do use in case there's something I'm not aware of that perhaps could be doing differently?
There's already so much in there. I'm probably utilizing 5% of Photoshop anyways. I mean, it's like a mountain. There is so much you can do, but I'm not even using it, to be honest. But those two are enough, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt this episode to drop another plug for my Patreon account, but I do spend several hours on each episode in the search for new guests, the recording, post-production, the advertising, and sometimes days on my YouTube videos. So to help me keep up with its production and the frequency of releases, I'm asking for you to become a sponsor and Patreon of the Are You a Scuba Diver? Fancy a Brew podcast. When you become a supporter, not only will you have my undying appreciation for helping to support the podcast, but you'll be able to take advantage of some of the many tiered benefits that come with it, some of which includes official merchandise. If you'd like to become a patron, go to www.patreon.com/fancyaBrew. There you'll see all the many levels of subscription and how to join the Fancy a Brew community. So without further ado, let's get back to this episode. So what would you describe your underwater style as? Do you have one?
Actually, I have been successful in both wide angle and macro. My trip to Mexico, when we went to La Paz to photograph the sea lions, was very, very fruitful in terms of return on trip. Return on trip was the highest. So with one trip, I won a lot of competitions with the sea lions. Yeah, exactly. And that was a trip that was so much fun. I mean, I really liked those little pups, kind of sea lion pups. They were very playful. So my style, I don't think I have a style at all, no. But what I can say is the number of people are asking me, what is your success due to? I try not to look at what the competition results are and who did what and try to repeat those. Because whoever won the competition this year, if you look at those and try to imitate them, that's already done and dusted, is seen. So you have to do something completely different, offbeat, different. Nobody has even tried. So if you try to copy the winners of last year, there is no way, even if you make it as successful as them, then it's not going to be anything. Unfortunately, it became a bit ruthless, these competitions, especially because of the digital technology. I think in the last 6-7 years, Alex Masters says the same thing, or the other judges. Like, it became exponential. Like, you can't catch these guys anymore. Like, every year there is something like, wow, how did they think about this? So you have to try something new, something different, but whatever you thought of has already been done already. No doubt, What I do is I say, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? That you have to bring product differentiation in a way. So I don't just look at underwater photographers and just repeat what has people done. I look at macro photography, floral photography, whatever, light painting, things like that. So how do I create background effects? How can I create some lighting effects, different torches, different gadgets? And sometimes I spend time at B&Q in the bathroom tiles or bathroom pipes, just to create something homemade, DIY. Create an effect and use some plungers and for example, last year's photo that I won the most promising British photographer, it was a washing up sponge I used to create an effect. So I was in I was in Dumaguete, Philippines. So I took a panning shot of a seahorse at a quarter of the second. So I found a seahorse. It was a high f-stop, f29. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do a panning shot. I did that a quarter of a second. And I had a very shiny washing up sponge. So I did the same in front of the camera like this. And then I combined them in camera. It created really beautiful light effects. When you combine it in the camera, then it counts in the competitions. And it's not like Photoshop. It just does it in a very interesting way. It combines the two images in a very interesting way. But you have to calculate it very well. You do it 50 times because it doesn't always work. So you try the same setup 50 times and one of them works really very well. So that's what happened, for example.
It's far beyond where I'm at now. But I've seen so many of these where it's been two pictures put into one. I think it was a fireworks anemone on a black background with a sunrise. So it was like a split shot, and it was so well lit. It was almost like the sun or moon, whatever we could see in the background, was almost lighting that up. It was so well done. It was. Do you know Trevor Reese? Have you come across Trevor Reese?
Yes, of course. It's amazing.
It was his shot. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yes. Oh, I see. That was the one. Was it last year's? I remember it was green, and then the thing was white. The soft coral was white. It was in one corner, right? I remember that photo. Yeah. It was very good. Yeah, but he's a very good photographer. Yes.
Well, I like his style that he gets in his garden pond, and he'll just shove his house in his garden pond, and he'll have a picture of some tadpoles or a couple of frogs on each other's backs, and to me that's completely different than what I've seen.
I wish I had actually a pond like that, and I'm looking around, where can I go to a river? I don't want them to just arrest me because of being a maniac somewhere, going to a river, but it's really nice work like that.
They've just built near us a housing estate on an old golf course, and they've kept the water features of the golf course. I think I'd look a bit crazy walking down there in my dry suit with my camera and getting in somebody's pond at the side of their house.
We should go together, so if they see two people, maybe it's fine. Yeah.
The biggest thing I try to learn off underwater photographers when I talk to them is, do you have an actual plan before you get in the water?
Yeah. Of course, I always do. I always have a plan. Obviously, this is nature. You don't know what you're going to see, right? Yeah. But at least you know if you're going to see a nudibranch or a whale. At least you know that much. Is it going to be a macro photography? Is it going to be a wide-angle photography? Yeah. I mean, when I go to La Paz, obviously I have a wide-angle lens or a fisheye to take wide-angle photos of sea lions. But when you're in Lembe, when you're in Philippines, like Dumaguete and Ilaut, clearly we're looking for microscopic stuff. So at least you know that much. But my plan is always, what kind of photos do I want to achieve on this particular dive? For example, it could be the ones that I already mentioned before with a bathroom pipe. So have you ever seen a photo like that? You just put a little pipe in front of the lens, like let's assume this is the pipe, empty aluminium pipe in front of the lens. Then you see these circles, the color of the subject being reflected inside the circle. It creates amazing effects.
Right.
Anyways, so if you're going to do that, clearly you're going with that and your settings are accordingly. So you know, I'm going to do this. Or you can say, I want to do panning shots this time. I want to try the whole time. It could be any fish, damselfish. It could be seahorse or something else. I'm going to do a very slow motion, quarter of a second, fifth of a second, maybe. I'm going to do panning shots, or you can try double exposures. For double exposure, sometimes I dive and just take photos of the sun rays, because you have to calculate, okay, this is the sun I'm going to use for my next shot in a double exposure. You have to locate the sun, let's say on the top right or top left corner. You see the sunbeams coming down. You are on your mind locating a subject on the bottom left of the frame, saying, okay, I can use it for that. Then you combine them later on. I do take lots of photos of the sun, and it doesn't always turn very well. Sun doesn't behave in a very predictive manner, actually, right. Depending on the time, depending on the angle of the sun. And I always turn off my strobes to do that, sometimes 8,000th of a second.
Really?
I try taking the shots of the sun. It depends, from 500 to 8,000 of a second. You just take the sun rays closer to the surface, really far from surface. At 20 meters, the sun looks like a blob like this.
Yeah.
But if you are further up, let's assume 5 meters or 6 meters, then you see these beautiful sun rays coming down. So you can have lots of different things, or I have some manual lenses. I say, okay, I'm going to just do bokeh, for example, this time. Sometimes you risk the entire dive. You may be after something that is not going to work. You just mess up the entire dive, nothing comes out, but you tried it at least. You always have a plan.
Of trying it and failing rather than failing to try. I think that's always a good way to...
Yeah, I always risk it. I risk. I mean, I scrapped so many, I wasted so many dives because it was a stupid idea, didn't work, or the idea was good, but for some reason it doesn't work. Sometimes I know everything. The theory is here. You see a frogfish, you know where to put the strobes, which angle, which one is in the front, which one is in the back. You know everything. It doesn't work. Everything is like, sometimes you go like, I'm at 20 meters thinking, stop for a second. Why is it not working? What else can I know? I know everything and it's just not working.
When you're doing the sort of shots of the sun, would you have it overexposed or underexposed or quite balanced?
It would be just right. I wouldn't overexpose it. It should be as how it should be looking. I can send you a couple of example photos later on. So I'm sure you have seen many, like is it Adriano Morettin? I think Italian guy. He's an expert on these double exposures. So sun, a beautiful sun on the right hand corner, and a nicely snooted animal on the bottom left, for example. You just take it exactly like that. It's just the sun, blue rays, and then the bottom half should be black.
Yeah.
Because wherever it is black, the camera combines that black bit with the color bit on the next shot or next shot. So you take it exactly, not overexposed or underexposed. No, it depends. So you take a shot and see if you want to increase the f-stop. Or not. Just take no, nothing is overexposed. If you see any, sometimes inside the sun can be quite overexposed. That's not a good one. You don't want to end up clipping. So increase the f-stop.
I've never tried to do one of these double exposures, and obviously there's probably a reason why. It's because I'm so new and I'm still, like you said, it's weeks between dives, so I'm getting used to my camera again and again and again. So to even contemplate that plan before I go for a dive, to try a double exposure or to try and make one up.
You know what you can do is you can even try it on land. It's actually not difficult. First of all, find in your camera how you do it. I have a Nikon, so yours is Olympus, so I don't know. In the Nikon, it says image overlay in the retouch button. Image overlay. So you already take one shot. What is important is it should be the frame, sun is here, and leave everything black. And in the second photo you do, wherever there is an image, it should be black and the bottom bit should be. So when you snoot an image, for example, just in the whole picture snooted on the bottom left corner, leave everything else black. So those two comes together. And image overlay, choose the first photo, choose the second photo, image overlay, and then that's it, save it.
Scary.
It's really not actually. I mean, I learned this now so well. I constantly do it and I like it. It's a good process and it's acceptable. You can't Photoshop it, but this is completely acceptable.
I'll certainly give it a go.
Have you seen any of my pool work?
Well, you were telling, it was either Justin or Adam about it, and wasn't it somebody had jumped in there was a sheet on your pool or something?
Yeah.
Right, go on. Yeah, tell us about
that. About 2 years ago, I had an accident. So when I was in Philippines, it was the very trip when the guy dropped my camera from the first floor.
Really?
That trip was jinxed for some reason. Apparently, I dissected an artery. You know, there are arteries, one in here, one in there. They are the main arteries that feeds the brain. Carotid arteries, you know. Apparently, I dissected it somehow. I don't know. Inside, you can't tell anything from outside. And I didn't know. All I know was that I constantly had headaches. I was in Philippines for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I had non-stop headache. And I was taking tablets, paracetamol, ibuprofen. I thought it's migraine. And I have some migraine tablets as well, melt in the mouth. I'm taking everything. And I'm still diving. Because nothing can stop me from diving. I have headache, whatever. But 2 weeks, it was really excruciating. And on the way back on the plane, my right eye shut down. I said, I must be really tired, you know, because we did 50 dives over 2 weeks, and that was a lot, you know, 5 dives a day, and you know, and then in between the workshops and the meetings and
that is a long
briefings, and exactly constantly looking at the photos, you don't even stop for a second. I said, I must be really tired. Those trips can be really boot camp, actually, very, very tiring, high energy. Anyways, I came and I went to the A&E. because they said I go to the A&E, and after 4 hours they did a scan. They didn't understand anything. They said there's nothing wrong with you, go home. And I said okay, there's nothing apparently. And a month later I was going to go to the Red Sea. In the meantime I went to Portugal for another trip. I didn't know, and then my headache didn't stop for another month, and I got ready for a trip to the Red Sea, packed my luggage, and I had an appointment with a neurologist that day. I thought that was migraine, so I went, and they figured out I dissected an artery, and I had a massive blood clot. I nearly had a stroke.
Wow.
And I died like that probably 20, 30 times with a big blood clot about to go to my brain, not knowing how crazy is that. So they said, look, you can't die for a year. So I was forbidden, and I was like crying my eyes out. So I canceled 3 trips that year, 2019. I canceled 3 trips, Red Sea, Cuba, and then Raja Ampat. It was all canceled. Anyways, I'm waiting to get better. And I got bored, obviously. They said, look, you can't even do any exercise. You can just walk. You just don't stretch your neck. Be careful. And I'm better now. I'm better, and it healed itself. So I was waiting, and that summer I said, look, what can I do? I will do some photography in the pool then. So I got ready for that on my mind. So we have a place in Turkey. So, you know, Bodrum, maybe you've been already. So we have a house in Bodrum, and we have a pool there. So that was lucky. I just got some clothes and, you know, whatever it is from here. I took them there. My daughter is like modeling for me. And then we have a housekeeper there. Her daughter is just modeling for me. Except I'm just passing time, basically. And that photo was the one that gone onto the cover of that Royal Photographic Society. I called it the Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
It's like Alice in Wonderland going through the mirror, basically. So that was very nice. My daughter also modeled for me, and that won the Ocean Geographic competition. That was the runner-up. And also there was one more. So I put some shiny materials on the pool, like a mesh, and then my daughter jumps in.
Yeah.
Oh, jump again.
Did you have? It's funny you should say this now, because it just brought another question to my mind. During lockdown, so sort of May till June or whenever it was, Fourth Element, I think it was, did under the bathwater competition. Did you enter that?
Yeah, I did. My photo was selected. It was not the best photos, but it was one of the top 10 photos or something. Yeah. I had those pink massage balls.
Yes.
It's very spiky. It looked like coronavirus, actually. My daughter was again throwing things into the bath, and I thought this was going to be easy, but it's more difficult. My back was like hurting so much. Throw it again. So we had fun, actually. There was a horse, which is funny. Where is that horse? I have a little plastic horse. So my daughter was throwing that one into the pool. So it's like, there you go, Ekus and Aqua. I was saying the horse was going into the water all the time. So yeah, we had fun. I think
a lot of people did. There was quite a good array of, like a vast array of photographs that were coming in, and some were just, how have you even thought of that?
It'll be boredom with the things we come up with, right? Like all these things. But the first photo was really genius. He did a very good job, actually. Do you remember there was like a polar bear? I thought it was very, very good. Yeah. It was excellent. Everybody came up with something. I thought it was a great idea. I did a lot.
So are you looking forward to next year then?
I am. I'm really looking forward to next year. I am at the moment getting ready for UPY, but I don't have enough material now. So I'm thinking, I haven't dived almost for 2 years now. And I keep looking at the same old photos. So I don't have enough merchandise. So I need to dive. I need new experiences. I have a few ideas. We'll see. But I don't have enough. Like last year, I had 20 photos. This year, maybe I have 10. We'll see. I already entered the ocean art. So we'll see. You never know. Sometimes you have high expectations of a photo. It doesn't get rated at all. And the photo, you think, well, let me put this as well. And then it gets selected by the judges. You never know. It's just luck.
Speaking of diving, funnily enough, that's what this podcast's about. What configuration do you dive? Because the amount of people I spoke to that are very serious underwater photographers suggest that they perhaps should be on a rebreather because how quiet and stuff it is. So I've been convinced to buy one, not just for underwater photography, but for other reasons. So I was supposed to be trained on it and have it at my house now, but with lockdown last week happening, I couldn't finish the course. It's been postponed for a few weeks.
I see.
What configuration, what setup do you normally dive?
No, rebreather, I didn't think. I don't think I may want to do it because it's quite scary in a way, isn't it? Rebreather is a risky thing. You remember Rob Stewart?
Yes.
He died with a rebreather. Rebreathers, if something goes wrong, the thing is there is like carbon monoxide, there is no smell, you just die. You get poisoned and you just die without realizing something is wrong. I don't know if I want to complicate things further. It would be great when you dive with dolphins or whales. They don't like the bubbles. It may be really good with that, but why do I have to? It's complicated enough already.
Yeah.
With the debt, with the nitrogen, with the whatever. I don't think I may want to complicate things further. Actually, I don't. I'm not thinking at the moment. I don't know what will happen in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I have no inclination. I just learned dry suit. I will leave it at that probably.
So what if you, in talking diving terms, what is next on your list to do? Whether it be training or a place to go that you haven't been?
Oh, yes. What is next is I really want some serious training in cave diving.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go to Yucatan Peninsula hopefully next year. This year it was going to be this year, but I couldn't because it was cancelled. I'm going to go with Adam. Next year, I think it's July, to Mexico to... the photography in the cenotes does not necessarily need cave diving because you're just going to be at the beginning, at the mouth of the cave, etc. But I really want to do proper cave diving lesson.
Yeah.
That would be helpful. Adam suggested that I can do that when I go there to Mexico. I can either do before or after. Maybe I'll do that. That is my list, actually. Probably that's what I want to do. Other than that, I'm already a master scuba diver. That's the highest level. And since I'm not going to be teaching anybody, I don't need to do anything else, probably.
No. Well, that's what our plan is. We were just going to have a full-blown, relaxing holiday, you know, no expense spared, really chill out and indulge in everything that the Yucatan can throw at us. And now we've decided to go cave diving as well.
You are as well. When are you going?
So we're on the 3rd of December. So we come out of lockdown on the 2nd.
No, it was this year. Oh, that was the cave diving.
Yeah.
Okay. But obviously you should take your camera if you go.
Well, what they said is they prefer that you don't if you're training. So I'm going to take my GoPro with me. So I can make a little, you know, video of going in and perhaps put that. But because we're training, they want me to concentrate on training, which is understandable. You know, the last thing I need to be doing is risking somebody's or my own life. To get a shot.
So I have a normal, very regular setup. I do dive with nitrox, of course, because I dive a lot. If I dive in a, you know, on a day is like 5 dives a day. Normally that's quite a lot. If it's not nitrox, I feel very tired and you feel the nitrogen in your blood and I have nightmares and things. But if it's nitrox, I'm fine. Just normal 1 cylinder in the back. I don't do side mount. I may do a side mount course because you need it for the cave diving as well, I think. Otherwise, just more, if I can dive, I just want to take more photos. That's it.
It's horrendous, isn't it, being locked down, knowing that the water's getting clearer and clearer and colder.
Colder, yeah. I can't wait also to go to Turkey because then we are just by the sea. I can do a lot of split shots then at the sunset. I did that this year. I did a lot of split shots and double exposure split shots. By the sunset, and I really did manage to catch great sunsets just on the surface of the water. That was very good. I'm hoping to use those. Let's see. So I can do more and more of those maybe next summer.
Have you ever done any sort of stargazing photography?
I did, yes.
How did you find that?
I did that. I did only 2-3 nights in a row. I was again in Turkey in the south. It was such a weird feeling to leave my camera outside today. I couldn't sleep 3 nights in a row. I kept going and checking my camera. It's not a good feeling. This is an expensive piece of equipment and you're leaving it outside the whole night is taking photos.
Yeah.
What if it rains? What if some fox comes and knocks the camera off? And things like that. I keep going out and checking. And it was good. Actually, it turned out all right.
Did you
My
get the star
first...
trails?
I did. It was fantastic. All these trails that I did get. It was really nice, actually. I liked it. So what you do is you take like, I think I used 400. I shot 400 30-second photos. So you just buy an intervalometer. You just basically say leave 2-second gap and then take 400 shots, 30-second time. So it keeps doing it the whole night, basically, and then you put all of them in a software called Star Stacks, and it just puts it together, and it becomes all these round stuff. Did you do it?
I did one. We were up off the west coast of Scotland. We were on an island that's it's known for being quite a dark area.
It must be nice then.
And the only clear night we got, it was blowing an absolute gale.
Oh no!
So I got my camera set up, and I had it set up, and I left it for perhaps half an hour, and then I thought, much like you, I didn't want to keep having to go out and check it hadn't blown in October. I was shocked for how few images I had, how much of a star trail. It was only perhaps 1/4 of an inch on the screen. I wish I could have left it out all night and I really got that full thing, but nah. It's just sometimes it's not.
You do it again, but you need to find a place where there is not much light pollution, and it's difficult to find that. And also, it should be like Turkey, for example. It's very starry. You look at the sky; there are lots of stars, and they're quite bright. Yeah. It works in here. Like there's either the light pollution or so many clouds.
I barely had about 2 or 3 to see, and this is known as like one of the darkest places in the UK to take shots because there was literally nothing. The village we were in, there was maybe 2 street lights, and that was it on the whole island. We'd gone up to an island called Col to go and look at the basking sharks at the beginning of September, and we didn't see a thing. Didn't see one.
I was hoping to use that double exposure, but I couldn't because when you do the star trails and the resulting image, you can only save it as TIFF. Right. There is no way you can do a double exposure in the camera with that one. So I was hoping, exactly. How do I do this? And I couldn't make it work. It could have been very interesting to do the star trails and half the images underwater, but I just couldn't do it.
Well, the last thing I want to ask you then. Clearly, you're quite well known now within the photography circles.
Not really.
But you certainly, you're ticking all the right boxes. You're winning or placing in a lot of the good competitions. Has anyone approached you for sort of training techniques? Do you get approached for that? Have you thought of doing that, going into that?
No, nobody approached me. No, there are so many good guys out there. Like when there is Alex Mustard, and there's so many people. There's Alex Tattersall, there's Martin Guess, Said Rashid. There are a lot of really good photographers out there. Probably you would ask them. There's Duxie. If anybody asks me, obviously when we are doing the trips, we all learn from each other. Yeah. We always share something with each other during the trip. You don't just look at Alex Mustard and learn something. We all teach each other something about a software, about a trick in Lightroom and things like that.
Yeah.
We always do that. But no, I didn't try to teach anybody. But I do a lot of talks to camera clubs. There is always demand, like, can you do a talk? So they're interested in underwater photography, how it works, etc. So I did a lot of talks like that to camera clubs, to different organizations or photography clubs.
How do you find that? Is it overwhelming a little?
No, I like that actually. I like that. I mean, I'm not scared of public talking. I mean, probably my background, and I was a stockbroker before. I did a lot of these talks, and people find it interesting. The first time I was approached by the chairman of the visual arts group of Royal Photographic Society. I wasn't even a member of Royal Photographic Society by then. And he basically came and said, would you like to do a talk in our in-house? We'll pay you. I'm like, what? That I was intimidated, like, Royal Photographic Society, what do you mean? These guys are going to eat me alive.
Yeah.
No, he said, no, please, I will pay you. I'm like, no, I don't need the money. They really insisted to pay me. They paid for my petrol charges. They even hosted me at the chairman's house. It was really, really lovely. And then they really liked it very much. So I did a 1 hour long talk and presentation, and the feedback was very positive. They found it very interesting, although none of them was underwater photographer or diver.
No.
But they thought it was very inspirational. So from that, I ended up doing another 2 talks, because there was someone in the audience, can you come and do it at my camera company, camera club, and another photography. And then I did one at the Royal Automobile Club to their underwater and photography groups.
Yeah.
So people like it, yeah. From time to time, I do some talks.
I remember speaking to a guy, he runs the Irish Photography Podcast, it's called, and he's really well thought of now. But he said to me, you need to learn it on land before you learn it in the water, because it's so much harder in the water. But I hadn't. I'd only ever learned it in the water.
Yeah, me too.
So surely we've got a little foot in front now, because if it's easy out the water, and we've learned the hard way, we can go out and smash it.
Yeah. If I was nearby to you, I would be very happy to give you anything necessary to help you, or whenever, just give me a call and we can do a mini Zoom session between the two of us.
Great, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I don't know your camera. Probably you don't even need me. I'm sure you're already very good, but I can give you some tricks.
Well, I think if I was to give anybody any tips, it would be to learn your camera first.
Yes.
Know how to get around it and where things are, because there's nothing you can do with a camera if you don't know how it works.
The best thing is, like, know the camera and just the basics. You know, people really often forget. I'm a judge now for this British Society of Underwater Photographers, the In Focus. This is the beginner's portfolio, but a lot of people would have benefited from the basics, like the 101s of any underwater photography.
Yeah.
Like, the first one is, you have to know your ISO, you have to know your f-stops and shutter speed and the relationship between those. You really have to understand, what is the effect you get when you play with the f-stop? What's the effect you get when you play with the shutter speed? This is really important. It's not just random, let me up this a bit, let me reduce this a little bit. If you do that, you don't really achieve anything, because you always have the end result on your mind. What do you want to do? What kind of impact do you want from this? And then you never use the TTL on your strobes. It's always manual, because you don't want to give the control to your camera. You are in charge of the camera. So it's always manual. Everything is manual. You just tell the camera what to do rather than the camera deciding for you. And other than these, the basics are, go down to the eye level of the animal. Don't take from up to down. Look, so if you take the shot, like this is the camera, if you take it like this angle, it is not going to work. It has to be this angle or look this angle, looking up. You have to get the eye contact. You have to get rid of the clutter. Separation is very important, which is negative space. So there shouldn't be a lot of things going on in the picture. There is a sea worm, there is a fish, there is another fish's tail, there is the kelp coming from here, blah, blah. There has to be a meaning. What are we trying to achieve in this photo? So if there is a lot of clutter, just separate the subject from the background. These are very important. Reduce the column of water, meaning when you think you're really close to the subject, you're not. Get closer. Get closer. Just get rid of the water between you and the subject. That's very important, because air is very clear, but water is not like that. It's dense and there are a lot of particles. The minute you are separated from the subject, you just basically, you lose the clarity and the focus and things like that. They are very simple things. They are very simple. The rule of thirds, the diagonals. If you do that, it will become a successful photo. Sometimes you look at the photo and then Alex Master says, look, the bottom left is completely redundant. You don't need this. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't need this bit. This is not giving anything to me. So things like that.
Wow. I want to get my camera off there now and go and start clicking away in my kitchen now. That's brilliant. Thanks very much. One last question, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Do you use back button focus or do you use your shutter release?
I do the back button.
Okay.
And I do back button. Everybody's different. Sometimes I regret using the back button. Alex Mustard doesn't like the back button. He says, I like the shutter release. Why do you introduce another complication? I just got used to it, I guess. But sometimes I feel using the back button, I focus it and then I use this. I lose an important time in between the two. Okay. And then maybe I don't get exactly the peak of the action. But I got used to it. I get used to it because sometimes if I use the back button, then you press it and then you can change the camera slightly just to recomposition. Otherwise, you can't do that. Okay. So I prefer that. So back button, yeah. Well, for panning and things like that, it works.
It's something that Adam taught me. I've not tried it. My camera and housing will do it. But what I found is because my strobes or my camera doesn't recharge for powering the strobes up quick enough that sometimes as I'm trying to focus using my shutter release, I sometimes fire it off too early when I'm trying to just focus. So if I use the back button to focus, I can take the shot when I'm ready, when I mean to.
I see.
It might be something.
So what does Adam do? Does he use the back button?
Adam uses back button. It's the first time I'd ever heard of it. So we're only talking 2 or 3 weeks ago. They've since come back and revised that. Can my camera do it? Can my housing do it? Which button? And it's perfectly placed for my thumb. So it's
I think it is 50-50. There is no rule on it. Some people prefer the back button. Some people prefer the shutter release. As I said, Alex Mustard, he's a master, and he doesn't like it. And he says, why? I got used to it this way.
Well, I really appreciate you giving me a bit of your time this evening. I mean, I'm sure you've got better things to do than chat to someone.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm flattered.
It's honestly, it's been a big eye opener for me. Some of the things that you've come up with tonight. So I'll try.
Thank you so much. You're being very modest.
No, not at all. I've had 2 different instructors as such, or two people to learn off properly. I've read some books, but there's nothing like picking the brains of someone who does something in a slightly different way and trying to learn how they do it and perhaps why, which inspires me to do perhaps something I'm going to do totally different.
No problem at all. Good luck to you. If you have any questions, do send me a question, whatever, shoot it. And all right, have a good night then. Go back to your missus. Yes. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Take care.
No problem. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Good night.
So that brings us to an end of episode 47 with my friend Nur Tucker. Links to all the things we discussed are in the podcast notes. You've been listening to Are You a Scuba Diver Fancy a Brew podcast with me, Andy the Northern Diver. You can find more scuba related content on my YouTube channel. The link is in the podcast notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And to become a patron of the podcast, visit www.patreon.com/fancybrew. There you'll be able to see the different levels of subscription and how to join the Fancy a Brew community. If there's someone or something you'd like us to discuss, please let us know via our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.